Hancom MDS is our partner in Korea, and they've been doing business for quite a while there, and have some significant customers that you may know of. You may have heard, like Samsung and some companies like that. And the thing about so this is really hard to see down here. Okay, so they've been in business for quite a while. They're a pretty good-sized company. There we go. Thank you. And the MDS is the embedded software division of the company. So they're dealing with companies that are putting stuff on chips like Samsung and LG and some of the other businesses that are down there. So they are they've got over 20 years of experience here in Korea, and they've shown some significant growth over that time. So they know what they're doing. They've got real dirt under their fingernails, if you will. And again, they've got offices all over Southeast Asia, but primarily in Singapore, or not Singapore, Korea. And so they have a really broad range of solutions in embedded, mobile, automotive, defense and aerospace on that. You can read that one yourself. Here's another one. There's some of their customers, as you've seen, Qualcomm, Siemens, NVIDIA, FLIR. And they're into IoT and artificial intelligence, autonomous driving, safety, things like that. So what they really wanted to present about was DevOps in Korea and just the difference between Western cultures and Eastern cultures. And this is can be pretty significant. So I see people from Asia. So some of this may not be too new to you, but who deals with divisions that are in Asia or in Korea? Okay. All right. So this may be interesting for you, or I hope it's interesting for you. Come on. There we go. So one of the things to keep in mind is that, the agile pace of development is kind of ubiquitous, but the agile pace of adoption of Agile and DevOps may not be ubiquitous. So everybody's really excited about Agile. Yay. In Korea, there's like, maybe not. We need to see. They're very cautious about delivering this. And, what do you mean by that? And how do we see the value? And then what do we do next? And along those lines. I apologize myself. I've been struggling with this cold all week, and it's getting the better of me. I'll just skip past that one. So some of their customers in Korea have been doing Agile for a while. Shinhan Bank built a mobile web banking platform. The head of the group, they said, they've redefined everything from the traditional financial framework. They've changed the way they work. They've changed the way they do things. And that was in 2017. And in April this year, a division of ING reorganized its structure into Agile, so that Agile is happening there. But it's not just, everybody's not just running into it because it's the latest thing to do. So it's not that DevOps isn't happening, it's just happening at a different pace and for a different reason. And as Aidan was going to say, it's all about the culture. And we talk about DevOps adoption, we have to change the culture of the organization. But in this instance, when you're dealing with different areas around the world, you have to be sensitive about the national culture, the culture of that particular region, as well. That may be factors into your adoption and how to deal with your other divisions. So what they found is some companies just don't have the ability to develop these skill sets in-house, either through skill sets or whatever reason, but they do look to external agencies to help them develop, and that's where they turn to companies like Hancom. But it's difficult. What they found is it's difficult to make changes because if you got the outsource, then they don't have the really authority to bring it back in. Okay, let's go develop these skills out here, but then how do you roll it back into the organization? And in Korea, change doesn't just happen. It's a very serious thing. There's a lot of people that refuse to change. And when Aidan and I were talking about this, he presented a very interesting concept that in Korea, a number of the large companies like Samsung and Hyundai and so forth, they are virtual monopolies there. And because they are virtually monopolistic, they act like a monopolistic organization in that they don't have to change very much. They don't have to change very fast because the competitive forces are not there to force them to change. And then you lump that on top of the different regional culture and the fact that older Koreans, older people in that area are much more conservative, much more resistant to change. And they just really don't want to abandon the old ways of doing things. You know, they look at themselves, hey, look how big we got doing it this way. Why do we have to change? And I'm not sure who this gentleman, Regent Hongsan, is, but apparently quite a few people still live by this edict. It looks like he's from quite a few years ago. But don't deal with other countries. Close the doors. Keep it. You know, we have what we need here to do that. So that type of cultural ethic is still prevalent in the society right now. So as an example, Hancom had a conversation with one of their customers. And so in 2015, they changed their postal code system. Now, I'm old enough to remember when that happened here and they went to the 4-digit, and that was kind of disruptive. But people just kind of got on with it. You didn't really need the separate 4 digits. The mail would still go through. The post office didn't have to change how they did things because that 4-digit was there. But in Korea, they changed it from 6 digits to 5. Now, you think about that, there's a lot of systems, a lot of organizations, there are a lot of applications and business logic that's based on that old way of doing it. But the Korea Post announced and advertised this change for quite a while until the end of last year. So it's been in effect for over 2 years, and they're still trying to train the people on how to use it. So the online shopping companies in Korea, they use both. They were able to adapt and use both systems. Amazon was able to change theirs in the same year that it changed in Korea, and other companies are still struggling on how to change theirs. So, as it says here, for some companies, the established businesses in Korea, it's harder for them to stop and make a change than it is for newer companies or internet-based companies. So that's just an example of some of the challenges that they've had to deal with. Oops. So there's also there's a different sense of time. Things happen at a different pace and a different rate. So here in the United States and in Europe and a number of other countries, when we're doing a sale, when we're trying to sell, you have some engagement, you do some discovery, yes, there's a need, there's budget, okay, we're going to go forward. We do a proof of concept. Do the proof of concept, and if you succeed, then you do the negotiation and the arm wrestling, and you close the deal. And it can vary. For us, it's anywhere from 6 months to 12, 13, 14 months. But that's normal. That's how it works. The proof of concept completes. Okay, they've committed. We're going to do a deal. And then it's just the negotiation, horse trading from that point on. That's not exactly how it happens in Korea. And I'll walk you through a little bit of a timeline. So why don't they, companies, adopt and adapt this? There are, I'm afraid, I'm sorry, I don't really understand this slide all that well. But here are some main reasons. It gets down to culture, in-house skills, not knowing where to start is very common, and the management not really understanding and not wanting to get behind it. I think it's more along the lines of nobody wants to be the first one to make the mistake, rather than let's be the first one to market and figure it out while we get there or as we go along. So now we've got some cases here to talk about. Getting back to that pace, that speed of things that are going on. So in this large automotive company H, which we won't name, this is how they went through their journey. So it was a year long of prep work, a year's effort going into this DevOps thing, this Agile thing is a good thing to do. And started with a number of line managers, the people who actually are responsible for getting things done, and lots of meetings and building a cooperation and building a almost like a consensus all the way across the board. That took over a year. And there was an awakening, like, maybe this is possible. Maybe we can pull this off. Maybe there is some benefit out of this. So they started with one team, one little team, and which is not uncommon in most organizations here as well. It was a small project. It was just continuous integration and test automation, and doing some minor workflow improvements. Right? Then it was, maybe it might work for us. People were kind of satisfied with, okay, yeah, this is okay. This is safe. And then I started doing for other teams, there's like 14 different projects, building in some variation on that, and doing integrations. Next stage, well, we're almost there. There's a lot of satisfaction. They were doing CI and CT across 24 different projects, 24 different teams. A lot of the human error had been eliminated from the from the process. Now it's time to go to the enterprise, right? We have all this proof. It's taken almost 2 years to get to this point. It works. Let's go enterprise-wide. No. For some reason, they still want to see more proof. So after 2 years, it's still not a done deal. And that's just a function of the culture taking a long time to accept that change. Now, you're smiling. You've probably had to deal with that, right? I'm sorry? Oh, they're saying Japan is very similar. Yes, it takes a long time. You have to have a lot of patience, yes. Okay. So now what Hancom is doing is looking at other things that they can do over and above CI and CT, test acceleration, build acceleration, and other things that they can do to help build value and convince them. It's kind of like a perpetual proof of concept is what it's really turning out to be. So It's actually been a little bit more than a year, a little bit more than 2 years. It's been almost 6. We still haven't closed the deal yet. But that's, that's how it works. So this is I'm going into some of the technical things that they accomplished. They auto-created a makefile, was one step, doing automatic build validation on that. So again, eliminating a lot of the manual errors. Was anybody in J. Paul Reed's presentation, the five dirty words? Like, human error is not a phrase you should be using, but it's still something that eliminating those unintended consequences through automation is what a lot of these projects are working on. This is, sorry, this is a description of their whole architecture. I'm sure Aidan could explain this a whole lot better than I can. But in summary, this really shouldn't be new. Korea is a unique culture. There are similarities with other Asian cultures, Southeast Asian cultures. But for us Westerners who are expecting our colleagues from other areas of the world to adapt and adopt the same way, same rate that we are, that's not really a reasonable thing. And it's not a personal thing. They're not being defiant. They're not being disobedient. It's just they're functioning within their culture, that it's going to take a long time and a lot of proof to make sure that you get to the next stage, or before they get up to the same speed as you. So again, I apologize tremendously for my voice and for our speaker not being able to make it. Does anybody have any questions or additional comments you'd like to make on this? Yes? No? Yes, sir.
I used to do a lot of, I was a sales engineer, and I traveled throughout Asia a lot, and every country is different. So, Korea and Japan are very close, but they're similar in a lot of ways, and they're also different in a lot of ways. And, it's just everyone is different. So do your homework if you're going in trying to make deals. I used to get in so much trouble because my sales manager would be like, why have you flown to Japan 4 times? You haven't got a sale yet. I know, but I'm close. By the end of next year, I'll have a sale. And I had to have that mindset. I knew it, but he didn't know it because he didn't work it, so we didn't understand that idea. Whereas other countries, we could go into Singapore and close a deal in a weekend. Back out again. So it's just, they're all different.
Yes, yeah, that's the point. That's been my experience as well. Andres, you? Okay. Yes. So anyone else? Any other comments, questions?
Stuff about the tools, people being trained and stuff is, there's a lot of that across Asia as well, with stuff taking on. I know some guys who are doing agile training in Taiwan, and he was telling me about how he set up his business, and he said there's no one up there doing it because they don't trust it. And he's a Chinese Australian guy, so he speaks Chinese and can do it, but they just struggle to get people to teach. And
so they're teaching agile training, but nobody's doing the agile.
I believe they are now, but they were wanting to do it, but they struggle to do it because of language differences and cultural differences.
Okay. All right. Well, I kind of ran people through the presentation, but this is Aidan, and thank you for showing up, Aidan.
Oh, sorry.
Here,
Okay,
talking to the speaker.
sure.
So.
Okay, I really thought there was like a 2:30 starts. That's like totally my bad. Okay, so I have 9 minutes, so.
Perhaps you could kind of give a short summary of
Yes.
Western culture.
Sure. I'll just skip the company part. Totally my bad. I'm so sorry. Yeah. So back to
Okay, so I would say the biggest difference between the Eastern and Western is the culture. The culture is like literally the most important thing that you need to consider when you deal with the Eastern people. So for the culture, like first thing is the lack of IT capability. This means that like they don't know how to deal with it. That's because a lot of Asian companies are using the outsourcing company to build their Agile and DevOps environment. So when the time comes to do by themselves, they just don't know how to do with it because they didn't create it. So their dependency on those outsourcing companies is too big. That means they have like lack of IT capability means. Next one is the change is serious thing. Like Asian people are really serious about the change. They don't really love to change. Like back in the history, people think that like change is some kind of cheating or affair, cheating their own country stuff. So if they adopting the foreign culture, that means like they're losing their existence and their cultural stuff. So, okay, well, I don't know how to get that in there, but sure, back. The next one. Okay, so for example, in August 1st, 2015, the Korea tried to change their zip code from 6 digits to 5 digits. But it took like 2 years and a half until that 5-digit stuff settled down. But amazingly for the Amazon that those companies, as soon as they heard that the Korea is trying to change the zip code from 6 digits to 5 digits, they applied that within like less than 4 months. It happens in like same year. They announced it. This is all because like a Korean or Asian people are really sensitive about changing, but also like Western people are more familiar with the Agile and DevOps stuff. So that's what that's why we spend like way too much time on changing. And another thing is that people are afraid of change because like during those times, Asian people are not really familiar with Agile and DevOps. So when they want to change it, they literally shut down the system to make the change. But people are really not that kind to understand their situation. They want everything to be 24/7. They don't want their experience to be interrupted and everything, stuff like that. So that's why it was like too difficult for Asian people to make the changes. Next one is sense of time. For Western people, it's more likely, you guys like okay, this is not this one. Oh, okay. Well, for the Western people, mostly they spend like little time for the POC because of conceptual thinking, but for the actual implementation, they spend a lot of time because of actual stuff. But for the expansion, they also spend little time because already they had the implementation. For Asian people, they spend a lot of time for POC because of trust issue. They think that, if I do this, does it really work for me? Does this kind of really reduce my workload? Stuff like that. They have tons of questions they're having, and they want that question to be answered during the POC time. So they spend a lot of time for POC. And when getting to the implementation, now they want to be happen like really fast like this. All those Asian people say fast, 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 because now they spend a lot of time for the POC. Now they think that, okay, well, we spent a lot of time for POC, and why should we spend time for the actual implementation? Because we already saw everything. And once you get to the expansion stages, now it gets slow again because it's all about the money now. The really weird thing about Asian people is that once they purchase some solutions or stuff, they try to get 20% out of it, even though that's literally impossible. So they always asking themselves that, what happened? Can we do it better? Can you do it without purchasing more? And can you do it without spending more money? And that's what it means about the expansion get more time or need more time. And for this Agile and DevOps survey, it's like an actual survey. And the interesting about this survey is that when you see this, the top line is the culture. So engineers in Agile and engineers in DevOps think that the biggest obstacle they're facing is the organization cultures. Even though it's on the top list, when you see the second and fifth one, it's also a lack of in-house skill is the one thing that I mentioned about the culture stuff. And also the management intervention is about they hate the changes. Those old culture people are now in the management positions, and they really hate changes, so it's really hard to make changes. So how we get in there? Okay, I have 4 minutes, and we are almost halfway down there. So first thing we did was the persuasion. We spent 1 year to make the persuasion. So we start from bottom to top, and we persuade the engineer first, and his boss, and boss's boss, all those stuff. We spend 1 year to just do the persuasion to start the POC. And next one, stage 2 is like we start with the POC with the one awake group, and we start with the one single project for 1 year to the CI and CT automations and improve workflow. And the second stage is we improve from 1 project to the 14 projects. And there's like 4 stages, we improved that from the 14 to 24 projects. These take 3 years from starting from 1 project to 24 projects. And the interesting is like stage 2, 3, 4 is not the actual implementation. It's a POC. So we spent 3 years on POC for the company H. That's like the biggest automotive company in Korea. I can't really tell the name, but it starts with the H, and you know what H is. And once it gets to stage 4, now they say what they really want from the adopting the DevOps. It was the reducing the human errors. So what we did is like okay, so this is okay, let me see. Okay, so this is what we did for the reducing the human errors with the electric flow. And he's here right now. And the first thing we did was to make file auto creation. The second thing was the build option validation automations. And third thing was past version checking and prevention of misapplication and automations. So back in the story again. So stage 5, now it's the time. So we apply the enterprise scale, and then we did the expansions. And now we are working with the electric accelerator to do the build accelerations. So major thing that I want you to get from this thing is that the persuasion and POC part. So one thing that Western people are really having trouble with is when Korean or Asian people said like we need more time for POC and POC. Well, you have to deal with it. That's just the kind of trust issue that we have. That's not a really good thing, but once you get through the POC, like after that it's really easy. But to get through the POC, like you need to be really patient because it's a culture stuff and the culture that we cannot really avoid. So please keep in mind that when you're talking with the Asian companies after you did all those persuasion, please keep in mind that you will have like long period of POC, but once you get through it, no problem after that. Like it's right away to the applying the across the enterprise scale. And this is like simply what we did like with the electric flow. So the developer writing a code and upload it to the configuration management system, and electric flow will take that information and run the test automation and bring the artifact to the test widget file and server. And the beautiful web dashboard from the electric flow will provide information to the developer and the management people, what happened and what's going on. And then the quality assurance team will take also that information from the web dashboard or electric flow to make the final decision to whether deploy or not. So pretty much this is what I got in when I came to the conference. So unique culture is the one thing that you guys really need to know about when you deal with Asia. So it's not just Korea, not just Japan, not just China. The culture is the biggest obstacle that you guys have to face, but just keep in mind that once you get through that weird but interesting culture, you'll get what you want. Just be patient. So the one thing that you guys want to take from this presentation, even though I'm super kind of late, but the one thing that I want you to take from this presentation is be patient when you guys deal with the Asian people. So be patient. You'll get what you want, just we need more time. So please be patient, and thank you.